Hello and welcome to this video where we will demonstrate how you can use a Keystore file to move sensitive data from the storage connector configuration file to a secure encrypted Keystore. Let us start with the basics about a Keystore file. Since the latest version of the storage connectors, you can remove sensitive information from the configuration file, like connection details, into a secure Keystore file. This improves security because any information is now being moved to that secure container. A Keystore is not a hard requirement. You can upgrade your old storage connectors to the new 3.x versions without the extra work of setting up a Keystore file. The next question is, why would you need one? In the version 3.x storage connectors, all the configuration is stored in the syncpstorage.yaml file. In this example, it has the access key and sensitive information for the S3 storage in that configuration file. With a Keystore file, you can move that sensitive information away from the unencrypted configuration file, and your access key, S3 access key and secret are stored in the Keystore file. A password provider will arrange the access to the Keystore, and that will be either a secret file, a file containing your password, AWS provider, or an HSM solution like Thales, for example. There are some best practices for a Keystore file. If you have, for example, a standard basic storage connector with only an access key and you use NFS, you can use and still use the syncpstorage.yaml file to store that access key. You could also move it into a Keystore file. But when more sensitive data like S3 storage credentials, or you host your storage connector at a service provider externally, or you use rights management or storage vault authentication, then it is really recommended as a security best practice to rather go for the Keystore file. If you use a customer managed key for encryption, then we really do not encourage you to store any sensitive information in the syncpstorage.yaml file anymore, but move that into the Keystore file. Our recommendation is to always start with a working storage connector with the access key in that storage connector YAML file. Then create a Keystore file and move simple things like the access key first. And when that works, then you move on to, for example, move your connection credentials and implement other things like SSL offloading or work with a different password provider. This slide will show you the procedure to set up and configure the Keystore. It requires a little bit more work and a little bit more commands to be executed, but overall it is not a complex thing. Let me assure you at first. Best is to start with a storage connector that works. So if you're setting up a new storage vault and this is your first time that you install a storage connector, don't go immediately for the big shebang, but first try to get your storage connector working with all the information in the YAML config file. In step 1, we will show you how to create a Keystore file. In step 2, we'll show you the instructions how to move parameters into the Keystore file. List the parameters or delete them if you want to update them. In step 3, we're going to update the configuration file, the YAML file, to now use the Keystore file for all the sensitive data. In step 4, we'll update the syncpstorage RC with the password provider info. We have several options: file provider, AWS provider, or an HSM. For our demonstration, we will use the file provider with a password in the text file. This is okay for demonstrations, POCs, and productions because it still protects all the sensitive data from unauthorized people. It is also out of the box. There's nothing special need to be installed, in contrary to AWS provider where you need the provider to install that for you. And if you're working with an HSM, we also recommend you to involve the HSM expert in the project. Okay. Let us start by creating that Keystore file. You see here the commands that we're going to use. Generate the Keystore file. It will ask us for a password and to confirm it. Delete the alias, and when the alias is removed, we'll show you the commands to update the security, the permissions, so that only syncpstorage can access it, and here the command to list the content of the Keystore. I am logged in as Syncp, and using the sudo keytool command, I can create a keystore file, keystore.p12, with a temporary alias tmp of the store type pkcs12. I need to enter the password for Syncp, and I need to choose a password for my new keystore file, and of course I also need to confirm it. When that is done, I can delete the temporary alias, and that means from now on I have an empty keystore file. Enter the password, and now that we have an empty keystore file, I can change the ownership of that file to the service Syncp storage. That's what I'm doing here with the chain own command. And with the change mod 600, I change the permission so that only Syncp-storage has access to the file. We can use the keytool-list command to see what is the content of the keystore file, which is of course empty now. In step 2, we will start migrating parameters from the configuration file into the keystore file. In this example, we'll use the key tool to import the parameter access key. It has an alias, will be syncplicity.ws.accessKey, which corresponds to the parameter from the YAML file, with the difference that the value of the access key is now encrypted. We have shown you earlier how to list the content of a key store using this keytool-list command, and if you want to update an alias, you first need to delete it and then re-import it again. With the sudo keytool command using -import pass, we specify the alias of the access key to be imported. First enter the keystore password, then copy the access key from the YAML configuration file and paste it twice to confirm. Then press enter for the key password to keep it the same as the keystore password. The access key is now imported, so we can list it using the sudo keytool-list command, enter the keystore password, and then it lists that it has one entry, because this is the first parameter we added. It contains the alias name, syncplicity.ws.accessKey, but it will not show the value of the access key. Because our access key is now in the keystore file, we don't need it anymore in the syncp-storage.yaml file. So in step 3, we will update the YAML file and simply comment out, or even better, remove the access key from the YAML file. In order for the keystore to be used now, scroll down in the config file to the crypto section and set the keystore enforced from false to true. Specify the full path of the keystore file and specify the type of the keystore file as pkcs12. As user syncp, sudo vi the syncp-storage.yaml file and remove the access key or comment it out. Then scroll down to the keystore section and specify the path to your keystore.p12 file and specify the store type as pkcs12. Don't specify the password to the keystore file here, but instead, because for a demo, enforce the password provider and finally, when ready, save your changes. Step 4 is actually a continuation of step 3, where we configure the password provider. We already configured the YAML file. Now we need to update the password provider, which is the syncp storage rc file. In that file, we will change the path provider into file provider and we specify the path to our secret file. Then we will use the echo command to echo our password into the secret file, and we're going to make sure that syncp-storage owns that secret file. Open the syncp storage rc file using sudo vi. Press I for insert, scroll down and uncomment the path provider line. It's already preset to file provider. Scroll down further to the file provider path, and for this demonstration I prefer to use keystore.config as a file to store my passwords. And when that is done, save the changes and exit vi using :wq. We now need to sudo echo the password between quotes to the secret file, in my case keystore.config, and then make the service syncp-storage the owner of it. Then I can restart the service, and using a sudo service syncp-storage status, I can see that it's running. So that means it uses the access key from my keystore file and no more from the config file. We have now one Keystore configured, working and enabled, so we can repeat that for the other storage connectors. You copy the Keystore file and optionally your password provider, in my case Syncp storage RC, and the secret file keystore.config to other storage connectors and update the syncp-storage.yaml file on those nodes as well. If this is your first storage connector that you deployed, it might be easier to just simply clone them. And as a summary of today, where we walked over the Keystore configuration step by step, we're done, but maybe not done. Maybe you have other things to do, like SSL offloading, which is another video that you can watch to encrypt the traffic between storage connectors and the load balancer. That concludes our video. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, contact us at simplicitycsm@axway.com. Bye bye.